Welcome to Improv for the Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll hear from Sid, who will tell us about his improvisational journey. We'll play a couple games, and most importantly, learn how he improv'd his life. Let's hit it. Welcome to Improv for the Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Lee Evans, and today I am joined by the incredibly talented coach, improviser, and all-around excellent human being, Sid. Sid, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here.
What an introduction. I'm not sure if talented really fits me, but yeah.
It does. Sid is just being modest, but a very talented, hilarious individual. All right. Well, Sid, as you know, I want to talk about, before we kind of jump into everything, I want to ask you about what's your relationship with IFTP? When did you first get started? Just to give a quick introduction to our audience.
I started looking for kind of almost from a therapy standpoint, something that I needed to overcome some business challenges. So to take a step back, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I used to own many small businesses. At the height of it, I had 7 small businesses, and I was getting ready to open up another small business. And I ran into a challenge during cold calling, and I was developing this CEO coaching practice. And as part of that, you have to develop your group, and it was going to be part of the largest CEO coaching organization in the world. And I had taken my training and gotten certified, and I was part of this organization for many, many years, and they had suggested that when I am looking to do something else, I should consider becoming one of their certified coaches. And part of that required me to do cold calling to reach out to CEOs in the area and ask them if they would be interested in coaching and joining my group. And I would get down to like the last number and I couldn't dial it, or I would dial it and when somebody would pick it up, I would hang up. And I was like, oh my God, I've never had something like this happen to me. So I started doing some research. And then I ran into somebody that says, you should try improv. So I researched different improv organizations in the area, and I live about an hour south of here. Okay. And there wasn't any classes. The closest one was in Culver City, and that was IFTP. That was back in 2017 when Matt was in Culver City off of Washington. So I took Matt's introductory class, and I hated every single second of it, because it goes so against my grain, right? So, but because I hated every single second of it, I knew it was something I needed to do.
Yeah, the challenge of it.
To stretch. So I signed up the next week, and luckily I was paired with Ava, who is my favorite. Of all the teachers, teachers are great.
Shout out Ava.
But Ava's was great for me. And she consistently makes me stretch. I'm in Matt's class now. And then Ava went to New York.
Right,
and then came back, and then is back with IFTP.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you for that quick introduction, Sid. We're going to dive into that a little bit more because I have a lot of questions for you in just a little bit. But before we do, we're going to play a round of 3 things. So, Sid, have you played 3 things before?
I have.
And of course, as you know, here on...
I'm already sweating.
Good. I am too. Don't worry. That's just the lights. And on Improv for the Podcast, when we play 3 things, it's always personal. So it's always going to be something related to your life, Sid. So don't worry. As long as you know we'll be all set. You have any questions before we begin?
No, I think I'm ready.
All right, here we go. I'll just pull up our categories, and here we go. These are 3 things. Types of bread.
Wheat.
1.
Hawaiian bread.
2.
And sourdough.
3. These are 3 things. Nice choices. Second category, Los Angeles Dodgers players.
Oh my gosh. Fernando Valenzuela,
1,
Freddie Freeman,
2,
Justin Taylor.
3. These are 3 things.
Oh, Justin Turner. Sorry.
Justin Turner. Ah, there you go. You had me fooled. These are 3 things. Last category. Challenges about being a coach. It's a tough one.
Yeah. Being a coach is a lot of fun. I guess the biggest challenge is to figure out what the individual player, or if it's a business person that I'm coaching, but what is the individual challenge that that player or that person is having at any given point in time. So it's
1.
a lot of listening and a lot of really trying to understand, and then trying to figure out, what is the best solution for them. So are we still playing These Are the 3 Things?
I will take that answer as 3 things, because that was such a rich answer, Sid, that was worth at least 3 things.
Oh, wow.
But I know you have experience as a coach in many roles, both as like a coach, like you said, coaching CEOs, coaching small businesses, coaching basketball teams.
Right.
So you have coached in many different capacities. So I think there's a lot of interesting things there that we might dig into a little bit. All right. So I want to jump back to that first category. For our first one, I always love doing something just silly and random. I really like your bread choices, Sid. Wheat, Hawaiian, sourdough. That's a great lineup. You're making me a little bit hungry. Now, for that Hawaiian bread, are you talking about those King's Hawaiian rolls, like at the grocery store? Oh, man. Oh, that stuff's good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I know the CEO, Mark Tyra.
Wow.
And when I was in the CEO organization that I was part of, he was part of that group. So I got to see him grow the King's Hawaiian bread from a small company, but a smaller company.
Sure.
To the $500 million company it is today.
I mean, what they are
now. Great
now.
guy, and yeah.
I'm glad to hear he's a good guy. That makes me happy about the bread, because I'm like, all right, good guy and good bread. Right. You can't ask for much more than that. Right. All right, well, good to know. Good to know. All right, that second category, I know we've talked about this in the past, but I am a loose San Diego Padres fan. So I don't know too many.
Congratulations.
Well, kind of, but did it really matter?
Well, I think it did for them.
That's true. For San Diego,
beat the Dodgers.
Yeah,
it was like
beat the boogeyman.
Monkey on their back.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they hadn't had a playoff game in San Diego with fans since 2006. So that was exciting. But I know Freddie Freeman, I recognize that name, and then Justin Turner. Well, I know those 2 names. So I think more recent Dodgers players, right? Within the past at least 4 or 5 years, decade or so.
Well, they're on the team now.
Oh, see, that's my baseball knowledge.
Although Justin Turner might not be on the team anymore.
Okay. Okay. Cap casualty?
Not so much. Yeah, I think they're going to offer him a contract, but they didn't extend him. So he's a free agent now.
Yeah, so he might go somewhere else. Or,
right.
Yeah, where he feels maybe wanted or.
Right.
Yeah, as athletes do.
Right.
All right. Good to know.
Fernando Valenzuela, you didn't know that name?
No.
So he's a longtime pitcher. And his claim to fame is when he was 20, he came up from the Mexico leagues. And he was such a phenomenon that they said that the amount of money that they sold in one game on peanut sales paid for his salary that year.
Wow. Wow.
Just because he just would pack the stadium.
Oh my gosh, because everyone wanted to see him.
Exactly.
Wow.
And now he's doing the Mexican language broadcast.
Oh, that's amazing. So he's still involved with the organization. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love when like former players can like come back and still have a role within the team. Like it's always, because then as a fan, you're like, hey, I know you're not playing, but I still get to hear you or hear from you. And it's always really special. So
yeah,
I didn't know that. Fernando Valenzuela. All right. There you go. Thank you, Sid. All right. So that last category, being a coach, we talked about kind of some of the different roles you've had as a coach. I want to ask you a basketball-related coaching question. Okay. What do you think is the best color of Gatorade to have on the sidelines for your players?
You know, a lot of the gyms don't allow a Gatorade.
Really?
Yeah, just water. Most of the kids I coach are younger kids from either first grade, through high school. Mm-hmm. So they're playing at the high school gyms, and a lot of the high school gyms don't allow Gatorade.
Wow.
Yeah, but I like the green one myself.
Yeah, green's a great color for Gatorade.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you there, but that kind of bums me out. I feel bad for those kids. But I guess maybe just because it's sticky or can be messy or they don't want.
And I think kids have tendency to spill.
Oh yeah, someone's going to spill a cup during the game, and then it's on the sidelines. It gets on kids' shoes. It gets on the court. And it's just it's not like football. It's outside. Dump it in the grass.
Right.
Oh man. Okay. I guess I can understand. Maybe if they had sippy cups for everyone, but even then. I don't think that would work. All right. Well, thank you for your coach's perspective on that. All right, Sid. So I want to get back to talking about your improvisational journey because I think already that brief teaser you gave us moments ago, kind of your start of working on becoming a coach for CEOs, which is what a type of person to be a coach for, right? CEOs. And just that experience you had starting out where you had to cold call people on the phone. I've had to do a little bit of that for work, and I'm with you. I don't love it, mm-hmm. and that it can be tough. Just like you're dialing that phone number and be like, oh man, I gotta talk to this person. I gotta pitch them on something. I gotta get them interested in me and what I have.
Right.
That is not an easy thing to do. So you found IFTP all the way in Culver City back in 2017,
right? And
you said that first class you hated it and you knew that if you hated it, it was probably the right place to be.
Right.
And why do you think, or what, I don't want to phrase this, like what pushed you to keep going? Was it just that like, I hate this, I have to keep doing it, it's going to help? Because not every person will do that. Some people will walk away.
Yeah. Like I said, I through my life, and I'm very, very left brain, very anal person, being a CEO and, everything has to be buttoned down. So encountering a challenge and trying to figure out how to overcome this challenge, I knew that I had to come up with a different approach than I would normally, because I would normally just fight through things. I would normally take a class at it and become an expert in it, even though it's something like sales, for example. So I don't like sales, but I'm a really good salesman just because I've taught myself how to become a good salesman.
Yeah.
Same thing with public speaking, right? I'm a good public speaker, but I don't like it. I don't enjoy it, but I do it, and I do it well. So cold calling and some of these, I just couldn't figure out how to fight through it. And so improv, to me, or taking that first introduction class, it was just something that it was almost retraining my brain and leveraging the right side of my brain, the creative side of my brain, which was all new to me, and that's why even in the classes that we've had together, because you were in Wednesday for a while, and we miss you a lot.
I know.
You and Tyler, but anyways,
man. I miss it too.
I get out of the class and I say, boy, you really sucked in that. So, and that's still my continuing journey of stretching and pushing myself and learning how to accept mistakes, because before, mistakes weren't allowed. Growing up, mistakes were not allowed. Mistakes were bad. And improv teaches you that mistakes are gifts.
Right.
So I'm still learning that even though I know the basic tenet. That's one of the basic tenets of improv.
Yeah.
That mistakes are good, mistakes are a gift, and you leverage mistakes, right? So actually, long way around to your quick question is, I'm still learning every day, and I think I'm a much better CEO today than I've ever been.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting point you brought up. I think so many people, right, are brought up with that mindset of like, yeah, mistakes are bad. Like you make a mistake, that's going to be a problem, and I know I've had that mindset as well. Like personally, I remember growing up, oh man, in school in particular, it's just one of those things like I can't make mistakes. I was such a shy, quiet kid because I didn't want to be in a situation where I could make a mistake or get in trouble, stay away from all of that.
Right.
I think I would agree that improv is something where it's a total opposite, right? Mess up, we celebrate it, we continue. It's going to happen again.
Yeah.
And I think for so many people, that's against their nature, their upbringing, it's against what we know. So I think that's a really good point. So in those first, let's say, few months of classes, you were taking classes with Ava. How was that for you, just coming in every week and they'd have it, you'd get up in a circle, we do some warm-ups, you're playing some games. Was that a big stretch, or did you feel it got easier over time?
Well, it gets easier over time,
Sure,
but not to the point where even today that I actually enjoy it. So I continue to struggle with it. But I know it's really, really good for me.
Yeah.
So the first couple of months, it was just, it was kind of like the WTF moment. Like, oh my God, what,
Yeah.
and it's, and I still run into that. So,
Yeah. And I think especially like for anyone who's coming into improv in like those first few classes that you take, it is like that. Like you said, those WTF moments, because you're like, what am I doing? What are we doing? What's happening up there?
Why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I torturing myself to be here?
Yeah.
And it's, I know exactly why now, but those first couple of months, it was really hard.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, of course. Because you're like, every week you're like, wait, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to just make stuff up.
Right.
And I'm choosing to do this. Like it seems like a crazy thing when you think about it like that. Yeah. Yeah, it really does.
And for my personality type, introverted, and I'm kind of a pessimist, it's really hard, And then, I had that really strong voice that I have to kind of, tamper down, right? So now developing that creative side, then at least I have an equal voice in my head, right?
Balance.
But before improv, it was really one-sided, and it was like mistakes are bad. And I've always been my own worst enemy, right? So now there's a balance. I can't, it's part of my DNA to be so hard driving on myself. So I can't eliminate that voice. But now I have the other voice that, talks about joy and laughter and creating community and the ensembles that I've created, So it's like, so I'm much more balanced. That's why I think I'm much more effective as a CEO today than I've ever been.
Yeah. Just coming with the balance between both sides of your brain, right? You like the left side and the right side. And you've learned that during your time here and just applying that in your work as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, and at work, and when I make a mistake, I laugh at myself now. I don't do it openly in front of my bosses, right? But I do laugh at myself, whereas before I would just carry that on with me for maybe a day or two, and I would relive the experience. That's all gone now because of improv, or I think the bigger thing than improv is IFTP. So.
Yeah, it's giving you, I think like you said, if you're carrying that with you day after day, eventually we're all going to make mistakes at some point, right? In our work, it happens. That would wear you down just every day, and you're like, I can't believe I did that. And it's only going to cause you to make more mistakes, I think, if you're not able to laugh it off, reflect on it and keep moving.
I think the biggest thing for people that are really hard on themselves is it's not so much that they make more mistakes, but they stop taking risks where they should be taking risks. So they start creating more of a closed mindset rather than an open mindset because they're so afraid of making mistakes. And I've always been one that always pushed myself. So that now I'm no longer afraid to make mistakes. And then I recover. If I do make a mistake, I recover really quickly. And even better yet, I can laugh at myself. So I'm able to take more risks now.
And I would think as a CEO, that's something I imagine is really important, being willing to take risks. Because if you're in charge of, or, guiding a company, right, it's important that sometimes you do need to take risks to see if they pay off, and they might not always, but you just have to have that ability. You can't play it safe all the time and avoid any scenarios, where things are going to be on the line. You have to take risks for growth or for progress.
Right. And even me as a coach, right? Even if I'm trying to show people how to develop their own leadership skills, if they're afraid to make mistakes, then they're not going to take as many risks. They're not going to grow as fast or as far as they can. So, I think that's more important than anything else.
Yeah.
Leading by example. I wish I knew this when I was your age.
Well, that's why I got you in here, Sid, so I could learn it at my age. Okay. So jumping back to when you were taking classes with Ava, you were still dealing with those cold calls, I imagine. So was there a moment when there was a shift for you, when those cold calls started to get easier, or you had maybe a strategy that you were able to develop just based off your time in classes here and how you applied that to your work, making those cold calls?
I don't think I ever became good at it, making cold calls. It's still something that I struggle with. But I can do it now. And then as I adopt any skill, then I can incrementally get better every single time. I think the biggest change from that perspective is I learned through that process that, I don't really want to be a CEO coach. Even though a lot of people had suggested, and my old coach had made the suggestion, when you're ready, you should move into that role just because I think you'd be really, really good at it. When I got into the role, it just wasn't that fun. And I was at a point now that I decided, I want to really focus my time and energy on things that I really love. And so I actually stopped charging $600 an hour to coach people or coach CEOs. And so the only time I'm coaching CEOs now are people that I'm doing it for free or for a very low dollar amount, or for companies that I'm thinking about starting. And I don't really want to maintain the company going forward. So the last couple of companies I've developed, I talked to the person that I think would be good to carry it on. And then we developed the company together, and I brought all of my skill set. And as soon as we got the company up and going, then I just turned it over to them and stepped back. So.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you still found a way. You're like, hey, this maybe isn't for me, but you found a way to make it. You can put it in areas where you have a personal investment as well. Like you said,
right.
Companies, there's someone you want to take over. You're like, I want you to do well. I want you to succeed. Here are the tools that I know to make that happen.
Right.
So then you can still sit back,
right.
But hopefully watch them flourish in that position,
right.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
It's amazing. Wow. Okay. So at IFTP, you said you started in 2017. And May 9th. Wow. I love that.
6 p.m. No,
6 p.m. Wow. Sid is good with dates. May 9th, 6 p.m. Was it dark outside or was it?
It was dark.
Oh, it was May. Yeah.
It's getting kind of light.
Yeah. This is dusk, perhaps. May 9th. Sid walks in. No. So
it was dark. Maybe not from a light standpoint, but there was definitely a cloud over my head.
A cloud over your head as you entered into the theater, the space. What would you say I mean, we're now in 2022 and we're still here at IFTP.
Right.
What's kept you coming back? What's kept you invested in this place? Because I know from my time that I've been here, a little over, I'd say close, we're getting to a year and a half now I've been involved at IFTP. I see you as a prominent member of the theater, someone who's been involved a long time and seen how it's changed and grown over the years. You're very well connected, which is something I've always appreciated, and you're very welcoming. I think you're a good representative of the community, because I know you're a person in my first few classes that I felt was very kind and just like, hey, if you want to like get to know us more, we have opportunities for that. And it's something I've always really appreciated, especially early on, where I was like, whoa, just coming in new. So that was something for me. I've always viewed you as that person who's a good ambassador for IFTP.
Oh, well, thank you. I never looked at it that way, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Definitely the community building part of it. I really enjoy that. I think I do that naturally. So getting together, before once a month for dinner before class, or going to a play, or going to see an improv troupe performing like at Groundlings. I really enjoy doing those things. But I think the thing that is biggest for me, other than the stretching things, which, I always found myself challenged about, is the kind of building of the community within IFTP. And I just really enjoy the relationships that I've developed through the years. And so I have like these 3 people that I consider my ensemble. So recently I was thinking about quitting IFTP and focusing my energy in other areas, and all 3 of them called me up and said, let's get together for lunch. And, that's the Hannah and Daryl and Annie Rose, right? And
It's a
we're
good
just
ensemble.
really, really tight. And it's like, I didn't expect that. The whole community part and the support part of IFTP that I think makes Matt and IFTP unique from other. I don't have any other experience, but from other potential improv companies.
And that's something I would definitely agree with you on. And I think for me, like a newer member, seeing that is like something that makes me go, I want to be a part of that. And I want to like fit into this place and the legacy that people have in their friendships and relationships here, which is, again, from a lot of the other places, that's rare. And it's a lot of people, they come in the door, they get what they want, they leave. And, there's no long-term investment in that. And I think, again, that's something unique about IFTP in this space, is that you can come here to work and become a better improviser. You can come here to meet people who are interested in improv. You can come here just to have fun too, do an improv.
Right.
Like you can come here with a list of different objectives and everyone can find what they want.
Right.
I think. And I think you've been a great example of that. There's skills you've learned here and you've been able to stretch yourself, which have applied to your career. You've made some long-term friendships here as well. Like you said, your ensemble. We've had a few of those people already on the show and they've had great episodes, and we're going to have all of them on the show eventually too.
Oh, cool.
So I think that's just a testament to what we have going on here. All right, Sid. So I want to get into the nitty gritty of things. So when we're in an improv class, right? And I've been in some improv classes with you. Is there a type of, I want you to tell me one maybe exercise or type of game that you really enjoy, and one that you find maybe you don't enjoy as much or is just challenging?
Okay, so the pessimist side of me always
sure.
start with the ones I don't enjoy, right? Which are a long list, but I'll just focus on one. Anything that has to do with an accent, English accent, I just can't do. And I know that's my own mental block, because if I really wanted to do it, I probably could do it.
Yeah, I think so.
I just haven't spent the time to really understand how I can overcome that roadblock for me. Now, just cursory things, just my anal personality, I bought tapes. I even wanted I was thinking even paying for a coach to teach me. You know, those are some of the things that I've been thinking about. But I bought tapes. I've watched YouTube videos.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and I still haven't been able to do it. So there's something else that's a mental block for me. But anything with an accent, other than a Southern accent, you know, I could do Southern accents.
Yeah.
What do I like to do? I'm not sure if it's any exercise, but one of the really cool things about improv and IFTP is just being able to come to a class, you know, a 2.5-hour class, and just have an opportunity to laugh, you know, a gut-wrenching laugh. You know, and it's not anything that I'm doing because I don't consider myself funny.
Wow.
But it's watching the scene partners going at it and just coming up with the weirdest things that are just so funny. It's like especially in this divisive world that we live in, where can you get 2.5 hours of just joy and support? And just sitting back and watching something that just makes you laugh, you know. And it's like you can't get that anywhere except IFTP.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like you said, that 2.5 hours is a different time. It's set apart from, like you said, a very divisive world that we're living in these days. And you can't find that, you know. You go home, you turn on any show, you know, you're not going to get that, not the same joy, especially when it's people you know and care about, or, you know, have been in class with for a long time. There's nothing funnier. So I very much agree with that, because I think that's something that's special about improv too, is that you're only going to see that thing, that moment, that spark of joy once, and then the next time it's going to be something completely different.
Yeah.
And it's special. It lives and dies all right there in that moment.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Which is, I think, something beautiful about it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So do you think in the long term, I know you've talked a little bit about it, kind of some of the skills or the shift in mindset you've had while you've been a student at IFTP and that crossover in your work. You said, like, kind of shifting your mindset related to mistakes, right? And how you approach those and how you view them. Have there been any other things you feel like have changed in your life because of class, or just over time while being a student here? Any mindset or habits or practices that you have that you maybe didn't have before you started?
Yeah, probably the biggest one around the whole mistakes and the whole anal kind of approach to things is just relaxing, you know, and just not being so hard on myself, and not allowing that voice, which again is really part of my DNA. So I don't try to change the voice. You know, I don't fight against the voice and saying, you know, you're wrong. You know, I accept that part of me, but the impact that it has on me is so much less than before. And then now I have this voice that is a counterbalance, or even maybe stronger than that real anal voice. And so, like I said, I'm just so much freer to do the things that I really want to do, or the things that I think are the right things to do, especially in a work environment. And I'm much more comfortable. I've always been good at apologizing. You know, so if I make a mistake, I always apologize. But I think that my apologies are much more heartfelt because they don't carry any of that angst anymore. You know, so some of the other skills are listening. I always thought I was a good listener, but it's like improv teaches you to listen way beyond your usage of your ears, right? It's taught me how to listen with my eyes. It's taught me how to listen by feeling, right? You know, and it's real simple because you're just trying to listen to your scene partner, so it's really not that tough.
Yeah.
But until you start practicing some of the improv skills, then you start to really understand how less you were listening before. Or, so I'm a much better listener. And I'm probably on the scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably still a 3, and I still have a long way to go. So that's what I love about your podcast, because I could, as I listen to it, I see how other students are approaching the art form. And like Liam is a great.
Yeah,
My favorite is Danny
fantastic
Rose,
episode.
of course, because it's part of my ensemble.
First episode, yeah.
Yeah, but Liam and even Sky, they give you so many different nuggets of things that you can actually learn. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of understanding more improv as an art form and how far I have to go. So
Yeah, you made me think of a quote that Liam said that's really stuck with me. He said, "Don't make jokes make sense in a scene."
Right.
And I know, like, historically in my improv career, if we want to call it that, making jokes has been something I like to do, but I know is not the most helpful thing to do. And even applies in my real life too. Like, sometimes I'll make jokes, if you're uncomfortable or trying to ease tension in a situation, which isn't always the most helpful thing. And I've definitely noticed that about myself. And I'm like, okay, Liam. Like, I hear his voice in my head saying that, because I'm like, that's applicable to my scene work, and then sometimes at home in my personal life and relationships too.
Right.
So I would agree. Yeah, there's something really interesting about hearing the different perspectives and approaches to improv, and what we want from it and what we get out of it. And I think that's part of why I love being here. Yeah. Oh man. Now I'm just gonna hear Liam's voice saying that the rest of the night. Sid, thanks. Don't make jokes make sense. Don't make jokes make sense. But you're so very right in that. There was a word you said earlier that I think kind of ties back to what some of what you're saying now, where you said you first approached improv almost in a way as therapy.
Yeah.
I think is what you said. And I think that's something very interesting and something I've thought a lot about, just having been as a student of improv and just involved in it, and kind of it's the role that it's played in my life. And it's been therapeutic in some ways, especially like coming here when I started. I hadn't been involved in an improv studio for a number of years, or hadn't been involved in performing or classes for a little while. And that's something that had normally been a huge part of my life, and I kind of put it to the side for a while. So coming back was just, oh my gosh, every week, like you said, that 2.5 hours was a high point of my week, getting to come into this room with people I cared about, laughing, just making up the dumbest stuff, messing up, doesn't matter. So I'm laughing thinking about it. Do you think that your time here at IFTP, or just doing improv, has it been therapeutic for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's start with improv and the definition of improv.
Sure.
Okay. Because I think my definition of improv is a little different, but I'm kind of an odd duck anyway. So I look at the world through a different lens. I think when people just in general that even are outside of IFTP and hear of improv, they think of performance art. They think it's a close cousin to comedy.
Yep.
And it's high stress, high pressure. So I don't look at improv at all like that. I look at improv as more of a ideology or a philosophy, right? And I think improv, if you put it in that context, or I think a lot of times when when I was telling my friends that I was taking an improv class, they would say, "You're the last person on earth that I would ever expect to take
like,
improv."
really? You?
And
Yeah.
I agreed with them 100%. And because I did one Ava was able to talk me into doing one show. And after that show, I said, that's my last show, I'll ever do.
First and last.
First and last. And I look at improv not as the performance part, but more of a way to live. And when you put it in that context, the people that wouldn't want to take improv, or let's say Matt goes to a business and does improv, things because they get invited to go into business.
Yeah, corporations,
training. I mean, right? I think most of the people there are actually looking forward to being entertained, And I think if you look at improv in that context as entertainment and the performance art, I think what you're really doing, or what we're doing, is we're really cutting off probably 80% of the population of the world.
Yeah.
Because most people, there's more introverts than extroverts.
I think that's true.
There's more people that are afraid to public speak, or the whole performance art, or don't think that they're funny, so they would never even sign up. So I think that when you look at improv as a way to balance out your life, creative and logical, and get all the rewards that you get just by following the basic tenets of improv, listening, committing to a scene, committing to your scene partner, going for it. Mistakes are good, and the community and your scene partner and everybody else is there to support you. And if you feel bad after you did something really stupid, and I'm gonna bring up an issue that a mistake that I did in one of the scenes, and you just laughed and laughed. But anyways, I think we fall so short of being able to take the basic tenets of improv and making it more of an ideology. And then once we make that mind shift, or once I made that mind shift, then it's like, this could help so many people. Almost like, in this divisive world that we live in, almost fixing some of that. So I look at improv as this big thing rather than just performance art, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that, Sid. And I think, like you said, just nailing it on the head, like most people probably don't want to be performers or, up on stage or public speaking, which I think is so very true. I mean, I think of like my family, like I like to public speak. My dad does. My sister, no way. My mom, no way. Like right there, we're already split 50%, and that's just 4 people.
Right.
And think of that on a grander scale. So like you said, when people hear improv, they're like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
I don't want to have to get up in front of people and make something up. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, right.
Right? A lot of people have to take one public speaking class in college. That's already bad enough.
Exactly, right.
So I think you raise a really interesting point where it's, depending on how improv is framed, so many people are missing out on how it could benefit them because they only see it as one thing.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to even flip your statement a little bit. I think the majority of people that love improv love the performance art part of it, love the comedic part of it. But if they could shift that and understand, by even doing those things that they love, if they could figure out how to communicate it in a way that, there's so many other, from a therapy standpoint, there's so many other people that you could reach that you wouldn't normally reach if you just frame it or look at it in the context of performance art, then you can really start making impact and start changing the world to a certain extent. I know that sounds kind of weird. But I think that it has, I don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, but I think, you know, it has that capability if it was framed a little differently.
Well, it doesn't sound weird to me, Sid, because we are on a podcast called Improv for the Podcast. So this is the kind of stuff I'm all about.
I see.
So for me, I'm all over it. And as I've said in past episodes, I've grown to believe this idea that often improv lessons are life lessons, right? It's like, what do I learn in class that can affect, you know, what I do outside of here, in my relationships, in my work, you know, just in everything else that I do. Because, you know, I'm not always in a class where I'm up on stage putting on a funny voice in a character, you know. Most of my time is not spent doing that.
Right.
So what can I learn in class that can still impact and benefit me and benefit the people around me?
Right.
If an improv scene, my job is to make my partner look good and to set them up for success, how can I do that in my personal life, in my own romantic relationships, in my friendships?
Yeah.
How can I help my partner look good? How can I set them up for success?
Right.
Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. We should want the best for our partner in either of those circumstances.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Sid, you're blowing my mind right now. And this is the kind of stuff I love to get into, because I think you've just said it so well that improv can be bigger than it is, and it just takes the right shift in mindset. And I think you're someone who's had that and view it as a philosophy, not just a performance art. Don't limit it. And that makes it accessible for anyone who wants to come try it, rather than a select few.
Yeah.
I
I had kicked around the idea with Matt once over a quick sandwich, you know, because the thing that I really like to do is I like to take a business concept and then I like to develop it and figure out how it can be repeatable, you know, and then once I can figure out how to make it repeatable, and then it's something that can grow, then that's when I know I can back off and let it and watch it grow, you know, just as if it was a team or a child or whatever, right? And so I pitched that idea to Matt once, and I think it was just too far out there. But I think that IFTP, just because of people that are around it, all the instructors, you know, including yourself, have that ability to take IFTP and really spread it, you know, because all of the tenets of what would make a business successful are already there. It's already built into the culture that Matt has built. So making something that is really, really good makes it easier to make it repeatable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, kind of once you nail the formula,
Right.
then you can spread it. Yeah.
Right.
That makes a ton of sense. Wow. I'm taking business notes right now, so don't mind my notebook, Sid. Wow. All right. Well, thank you for that, Sid. I appreciate you sharing your perspective and like the therapeutic impact that you've seen from improv and kind of the philosophy you've developed based off of that. Because I think we haven't heard it shared in quite that way so far. So thank you for bringing that here tonight. So I want to ask, Sid, in your improv journey, like you said, you've had your first and last show. You've done some classes here and there. What do you think the future looks like for you in improv? Is there a goal you have in improv specifically, or something you want to take away from improv into another area of your life? What's next for Sid and improv?
Well, because of your podcast, I want to do my own work, you know, in improv and develop a better understanding of the art, so I can get better at it. I have recently been assigned as a board member for this pretty large nonprofit organization. It's too soon to figure out if I can help. There's two areas within this really large nonprofit organization that I'd really like to start spending some of my time in. And one is teenage suicide, and one is homelessness. And I think, you know, if I was to jump out there and take my words and actually try to implement them, I think that the tenets of improv could help create solutions in both of those areas. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything with that. I'm just brand new to the organization.
Sure.
So, and I know enough about change management that as soon as you join something, you just don't start throwing ideas out.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
But it'd be really cool if I could take some of the things that I've learned from improv as that, ideology to actually come up with ways to help people in those challenges. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I really love that because I think those two areas that you mentioned are huge and so vastly important. And I think, well, maybe this is a stretch, but that makes me think back to the roots of improv, which at the end of the day was working with kids and education, which is something I've always appreciated about it, having worked in education myself. So if you're looking to learn more about that, a book I recommend is Improv History,
Really?
Improv Nation. Sorry, Improv Nation.
Oh, okay.
It's just it's like an improv textbook, basically the history of the art form within America. And it talks about this woman, Viola Spolin, who kind of developed improv in education in, gosh, I think like the 30s and 40s, way back. And then her kid in the 50s and the 60s kind of developed it into more modern improv, what we have now. And she's got a book that's like, it's 100 improv games for the classroom written by Viola Spolin. It's a great book. I got it at home.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I'm just plugging books, but I think it's a really interesting to kind of look back at its roots because it wasn't performance in the beginning.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was about working with children and helping them open up and connect with one another and helping kids feel comfortable in their own skin, which, I think is really important too.
Yeah.
Especially as a kid, you're so impressionable and scared to be you.
Right. And I think with suicide, right, that's a big thing, right? Is that, there is no connection.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have in IFTP that I love is just the connections that we have. I recently have this other ensemble of Dan, who was on the show, and Gavin and Grace, and it's like I'm with this new ensemble group, and it's like I'm 64 going on 25, because they're all 25.
Oh,
right?
I wish I was 25.
They're all under 30, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I would never be around, before. And calling them my friends. And I think vice versa. I might be fooling myself.
No, you aren't.
So, I think that unique thing about IFTP and how it fosters the connectedness amongst everybody, within IFTP is, something really, really special that can be duplicated.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, that's something I've also appreciated since I started coming here, is that in a lot of other places, you don't get, I guess, diversity within age groups in classes. It's a lot of like 20-somethings and that's it.
Right.
And I think it's a richer experience when you can have all types of people in a room learning and working together versus just one specific group. It's always going to be better and more enriching.
Right.
So I think that's something I noticed immediately starting here, and that I've always been like, man, it's just better when it's that way.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, Sid, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
And then we're going to play some games. Then it's going to get a little silly. But we get to sit down, so that's one thing I love. All right, Sid. So do you have, if you were talking to someone who's maybe thinking about joining IFTP or is just getting started in their first couple classes, do you have any words of wisdom or words of advice you might give to that person?
I don't approach the answer to that question that way. So the way I approach it, because each person is unique, right? So if it's somebody that is like me, introverted and scared to make mistakes, so I would tell that person, I would first ask them, what made you come to improv.
Yeah.
You know, and then once I heard that little bit of story, and then I could understand their personality type, then I would start to explain to them the parallels in my personality type that they may be feeling and hearing. Feeling. And then I said, you know, I was in that exact same spot. You know, it's like it took me, you know, several months before I really even felt comfortable standing up and volunteering for a scene. I would always be the last one, you know, and go through some of those experiences. If it's somebody that is just naturally gifted and they love to perform, you know, then I think that, like a good example of that person is Gavin. You know, Gavin is so talented in so many different areas, even though he's new to improv, right? But he loves performing, right? So with him, you know, I think he was looking for more of building the community and getting to know other people within the community.
Yeah.
So, you know, he'd be one of the first people that I would say, hey, let's sit down and have breakfast and let's get to know each other. And, you know, and that's why he's part of my ensemble now. So I think it's unique to each person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just in that answer, I hear the coach in you because you're identifying kind of that motivation, right? No, but that's not a bad thing.
Right.
I think that makes sense because, like you said, each person is different and not all advice is universal.
Right.
And it's, like you said, sitting down with that person, what's their need and what do they desire from joining this or signing up for this thing? Right. And then once you identify that, you know kind of which direction to point them in.
And then once that they understand that you understand a little bit of them, then that's kind of like a foundation stone, right? And then you can use that foundation stone to build trust around. So, I mean, that's the key to answering that question. You really need to know what they're searching for and what foundation stone that you can build and then start to grow from there. So,
yeah, the nuance of the person.
Right, exactly.
Okay. See, no, that's a good thing. I hear the coach in you. Yeah, 'cause I think that's true. And that's what a good coach does, I think, too. Whether it's motivating a player or an improv student. All right. Well, thank you, Sid. And I want to say one thing interesting that I've learned about you is that I think I have a lot of respect for someone showing up to do something that stretches them and continuing at that, because I know, both personally speaking and just in general, that's not something we often want to do.
Right.
To do something that stretches us. So the fact that you said, hey, this is good for me, I'm going to stick with it because I know it can help me in the other areas I work in, that's huge. And that says a lot about a person, Sid. I think that's everyone at home right now, everyone listening. Think about that. What's something in your life, you know, that maybe you don't always want to do, but that stretches you and you know it makes you better?
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, it's been a really good journey.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and good journeys. I mean, for me, the best journeys that I've been on are the ones that are hard. You know, so yeah, I've learned so much from this journey. So that's why I wouldn't give it up.
Yeah. The best stories come from the hard journeys, not the easy ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Sid.
So am I done?
Done with the interview. You got me there, Sid. All right. So we got a couple games picked out for us, Sid, that we're going to be playing tonight. But we're going to have fun.
Okay.
So this first game we're playing is called Late for Work. And in this game, Sid, I'm going to be your boss. And you are coming in late for your shift, and you're going to have to explain why. So in this scenario, you and I, we both work at a furniture store. I'm your manager, and you're coming in late for your shift, and you're going to have to explain to me why you were late, and the reason you are late needs to involve a Post-it note. All right. Any questions for me before we jump in?
Nope.
All right, so we're just going to play, and I'll black us out when I think we're ready. Jeffrey, you finally made it in. Oh my gosh, you're 35 minutes late to your shift. I'm out here working the floor alone here at Jerome.
Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. You have every right to be upset with me. I don't even like the idea that I'm 35 minutes late. So,
Yeah, you and me both.
And I'm going to tell you what happened, and this is God's honest truth, and you're gonna hear it like it's just completely BS, but it's not. Okay.
You're really setting yourself up here, Jeffrey.
So I wrote myself a note, and I wanted to make sure that I put the Post-it note over the snooze alarm to make sure that when the alarm went off, I couldn't hit the snooze. And I put it over the wrong button, and I just overslept. And I know that's not an excuse, and that's God's honest truth. And I hope you don't fire me, but you have every right to fire me. So,
well, Jeffrey, I have something to tell you. I sometimes hit the snooze button too, and it's actually something I've been struggling with. I know I was pretty angry at you before, but do you think you could help me write a Post-it note for my alarm clock so I could put it on the snooze button?
Absolutely, but yeah, I'll even write you a procedure of how you don't make the same mistake I made.
I would appreciate that. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Of course. You are one of my best salespersons on this floor here. You move a lot of couches, which I appreciate. Your numbers this month. Oh my gosh, you've sold 34 couches this month. So
it's because of improv.
It's because of improv. Wow. I don't have a lot of time for such things as improv. I'm busy working the floor here at Jerome's, but maybe you can teach me some things. Maybe the boss needs to learn from his employees. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. And once again, I'm really sorry I'm late.
It's all right. Blackout. All right. Very nice. Very nice. I really liked your explanation there. Because I think, I would buy that, someone's just like, I got to stop myself from pressing the snooze button. And just puts it you didn't make a joke. You made sense right there. I totally bought that.
Liam.
Yeah. I think Liam's looking down on us right now. Yeah. He's like, yeah, nice, Sid.
Improv wisdom.
Yeah.
I had read that book already, and after your podcast, I read it again. So that's such a great book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a good Liam recommendation. All right, so I'm going to move us on to our second game, but well done, Sid. Well done. One. Oh, we're playing threes, Sid. Rule of threes. We always do 3 games here. Everything's about threes on this show.
I see.
We do 3 categories. Well, I ask you a lot more than 3 questions, but
I know. Sorry about that one.
And then we do 3 games at the end.
I'll see if I can mess it up again.
All right. No, you were fantastic. All right. So this next game we're playing is called Confession. And in this game, you and I are going to be given a relationship, and the relationship that we have in the scene is trainer and athlete. So one of us is going to be the trainer, the other person is going to be the athlete. And one of us will need to confess something to the other. So we don't get a lot here, we get a relationship, and that kind of informs our scene. So Sid, I'm going to say that you're the trainer, and I'm going to be the athlete. All right, one of us is going to confess something. We'll find out. I'll black us out when I think we're done. Coach, I gotta take a break from doing squats, all right? I'm going crazy here. I'm so sore.
Tim, I know that we've talked about this, and you are almost at the world record on pole vaulting. And the only thing that is holding you back is the strength of your quads. And we talked about, doing 500 squats a day. And you started off great.
Yeah.
You got to 250, no problem within that first week, and then you're about 400 now. You only have 100 more to go. And it's like, if you noticed last week, you were about six inches, right, from the world record?
Yeah, 6 inches.
Don't give up.
You're right, Coach.
You're right there.
I want to be the best, and I know you're trying to push me to be the best. I got to confess something to you, Coach. I've been fudging the numbers a little bit on my squats. My apartment is on the 6th floor. It's a 6th floor walk up, and I realized after the first day that doing all those squats made it really hard to get up to my apartment. So I've only been doing about 50 squats a day.
Oh my God. You've only been doing 50?
Yes.
And you added 6 inches? And you're only 6 inches away?
Yeah.
Well, damn, that's fine.
You're not mad at me?
No, fuck the 500.
Yeah, fuck the 500.
Yeah. I think you don't. You go down if 50 is your number and you can continue to improve. It's whatever works for you. And if you're getting the results, how can I fault you for that?
Wow, you're right, Coach. I'm going to be honest. I was really nervous to tell you, just because I got to be able to get to my apartment. That's where I live.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought, if I do 500 squats, I guess I'm going to have to move. I didn't want to have to move.
It's the result.
You're right.
And I'm trying to help you, and I just assumed, because that's every single other athlete pole vaulter I trained.
Sure.
It was the 500 was the golden number. Now, if you can do that with 50, that's fine. But it's the result. If you start backtracking, then we might have to adjust the number off of 50.
Got it. Okay. I mean, yeah, Coach, I know you've trained some of the greats. Timothy Watson, he was an all-time pole vaulter, and Jennifer Jenkins, she was fantastic. So I hope to live up to their legacy, break that world record. There's one more thing I got to confess to you. I know, and it's like it's a little more than 6 inches. I've been fudging those numbers a little bit too. It's with my 50 squats a day. I've actually, I told you I was 6 inches from the world record.
Right.
I'm actually 6 inches further away than where I initially was when we started.
Oh man.
So in truth, I'm probably about 18 inches from the world record. I've gotten weaker.
Well, what is it that you want? I can put the program together, and if you're not going to follow my instructions, it's the gold medal isn't going to be hanging around my neck, right? I'm doing this for you.
Yeah.
Now I get some accolades here,
Yeah.
but it's like I'm putting the program together for you, and you're the one that wants to stand up on that podium.
Yeah.
So you got to tell me what it is that you want to sacrifice in order to get there. Now, if you don't want to sacrifice, then don't waste my time, and I'm not going to waste your time. So what is it that you want, Tim?
Well, Coach, I guess I got to move apartments.
That's a good start.
Blackout. You are such a kind coach. I didn't even realize I was putting you in that. It just hit me now. They're like, oh, wait, you've been that wasn't even intentional. Oh boy, but you were just
You're trying to make it easy for me.
Yeah, like you said, you're like, well, I'm not going to be wearing the gold medal. It's you. So what do you got to do to get there? I was like, wow, you're really putting the onus on me. Wow. Well, that was unintentional, but oh man, that was perfect. Yeah, it's. I think my guy he's kind of a bum, but I think if he just moves, he'll really get it together and be able to turn those numbers around quick.
Well, I'm sure Tim's going to make it.
Yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind.
Wow. Well, thank you, Coach. All right, Sid. I got one more game for you.
Wonderful.
And then we'll wrap it up. These have been fantastic so far, so I'm excited for this third one. Okay. So this last game is called History Bluffs. History Bluffs, and we're gonna talk a bit of history here, Sid. Okay. So in this game, you are a historical expert, and I'm gonna give you an object and a historical event, and it's gonna be your job to explain to me how those two things are tied together, how the object had an impact in this historical event. So today, Sid, you are a historian who is an expert on the fall of Rome, and you are going to tell me how an umbrella was related to the fall of Rome.
All right. This is a very little known fact, because you think of an umbrella and how can an umbrella, have anything to do with the fall of the Roman Empire, which had, if I remember correctly, was 300 to 500 years the Roman Empire was around, and how could something like an umbrella impact the Roman Empire? But towards the end of the Roman Empire, the Senate had started to dissolve its power and started to I think they grew tired of just conquering and many wars and the many countries that they had invaded and taken over. So their spirit was very different from the beginning of the Roman Empire. And then the Emperor
of course, Emperor
created the umbrella.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, and he created the umbrella to so they just wouldn't have those harsh winters, and the soldiers and the citizens,
those harsh Roman winters
could protect themselves from the harsh elements.
That was very noble of Emperor.
It was a great invention. The soldiers, the umbrellas that the soldiers were gigantic, and they weighed so much.
Yeah, they had to be strong.
They would cover the horses and the soldiers at the same time. That's how big they were.
I bet the horses appreciated that too.
So, for sure.
Yeah.
But what happened is it started to weaken the spirit of the soldiers and the citizens, and they became weaker individuals just because they never really faced any strife anymore from the harsh winters.
Of course.
So society overall, unbeknownst to Emperor started to become weaker and weaker citizens and soldiers, and then the Huns just took them over.
Oh my gosh. So in Emperor Um's efforts to make life better for all Roman citizens, his invention led to the downfall of the empire.
Right.
And created a weak people.
Weakened the fabric of the citizenry.
Oh my gosh. Soldiers. Wow. That is a tragedy. Thank you so much for sharing. Blackout.
That was stupid.
Oh, it was great. It was great, Sid. That was, I felt like I was reading the textbook. But it's great to know the impact of some of inventions on history. I had no idea.
Right.
Yeah. So I can't wait to, I'm going to go to school tomorrow and share that, with everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Sid, for playing those games with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we close out this episode of Improv for the podcast, I want to give you the opportunity. Are there any final words you want to share with us before we close out tonight?
No, thank you for having me. I know I think a little bit differently than most, and my experiences with improv and IFTP are through a different set of lens. So it's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes, definitely.
And then definitely, if there's anything I can do to help, with the podcast and, help widen your audience, then definitely let me know.
Of course, definitely. We'll be in touch, I think.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Sid for coming on the show and sharing his perspective on improv, its impact in his life, improv as therapy, potentially, and how we can view improv as a philosophy more than just a performance art. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love if you could leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. But until then, we'll see you next time. Improv for the Podcast was created by Matt Moore and Michael Lee Evans. Edited and produced by Michael Lee Evans. And finally, presented by Improv for the People. Interested in more IFTP? You can visit us at improvforthepeople.com or on our socials, such as Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Remember, new episodes are released weekly. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.